Having survived the demise of Rome, Byzantium remained the most powerful economic, cultural, and military force in Europe for many centuries to come. Nevertheless, its power declined over time, and by the 15th century the power had disappeared from the political map, marking the final fall of the canonical Roman Empire. What led such a powerful state to decline? In fact, the Eastern Roman Empire repeatedly experienced periods of rise and fall. Contemporaries of different eras said as that Byzantium is about to fall, then again saw the revival. Thus, in the 6th century under Emperor Justinian, the power returned under control of Italy, Africa, part of Spain and Rome, and Justinian himself during his lifetime considered himself the restorer of that very empire. 50 years later, however, it would turn out that the state machine had worn itself out, citizens were impoverished, and a plague had ravaged the Balkans. Soon the Persians would reach Constantinople and nearly take over half the country. There were many such stages. However, by the 10th century, Byzantium had established itself as a developed and centralized state, with a regular militia and heavy cavalry as an army. She was winning back lands and losing them, but the core of the empire remained intact. The point of no return of the Byzantine Empire is associated with the activities of the dynasty of emperors Angels who came to power in the second half of the 12th century. Isaac II and his kin took the throne as a result of a coup d'état, often occurring in the empire. Later, relying on the aristocracy and foreign military aid, the representatives of the dynasty made a number of fatal mistakes. Formally, it was under the Angels that Byzantium became acquainted with the medieval feudal system. Aristocrats had previously owned land, but they leased it from the state. In return, they had to provide soldiers or take up arms themselves. On the ground, the power belonged to strategists. They also gathered armies. The gathered militia was supplemented by elite troops subordinate to the central authorities. However, Isaac adopted a policy of distributing land to supporters and granted tax privileges. At the same time, receiving an allotment ceased to oblige representatives of the nobility to perform military service. In the conditions of Byzantine privatization in the country began to appear large landowners. They ruined ordinary peasants' warriors. Previously they, as well as the free peasants, had served as a key source of taxes for the maintenance of the army. Now, with the emergence of feudal lords who could avoid paying taxes, funds to support the army became scarce. In fact, the empire broke up into many feudal domains. The larger the viceroyalty was, the less it was subject to the central authority. Such a policy also led to the degradation of the recruitment of troops from the provinces. The army was now manned by the personal detachments of the viceroys. Such units were assembled in smaller numbers, possessed heterogeneous armament, and were more loyal to the feudal lord than to the emperor. Feudalism was not a bad system. After all, Europe, the Middle East, and Persia lived by similar principles. But Constantinople had lost more than just the unity of its army. It had destroyed its economy. By the beginning of the 13th century, Byzantium, located at the crossroads of important trade routes, had lost income from them. This was due to the distribution of trade privileges to the Italian trading republics of Venice, Genoa, and Pisa. In exchange for exemption from various duties and access to Byzantine ports, the Latins provided the emperor with their mercenary troops and fleet. On the one hand, it allowed to level the weakness of their own armed forces. On the other hand, it caused degradation of crafts and loss of income. The fact is that Byzantine artisans and traders continued to work without tax benefits. Their products were sold more expensive and turned out to be uncompetitive in the market. The economy was taken over by foreign merchants. It should be said that the half-empty treasury did not prevent the Angels from organizing lavish feasts and throwing money around. Corruption was rampant everywhere, and the most ironic thing is that the Venetian fleet was not needed by the Byzantine army. In the wars, he was not useful. Historians note a significant decrease in the area of arable land. At that time, when in the West technologies of soil cultivation and flour production were developing in full swing, innovations were practically not applied in Byzantium. The agrarian economy was in crisis due to constant wars in the region, including civil wars. Besides, the Byzantines still considered themselves the luminary of the whole world and refused to apply innovations of barbarian nations. For example, they did not use Arabic numerals, which simplified accounting. The general crisis in the country was aggravated by regular uprisings and coups d'état. Bulgaria, Serbia, and Dalmatia were lost in the 12th century. From the east, the empire was under pressure from the Seljuk Turks. Inside the country, social tensions were growing between Greeks and Latins. The people saw Italian merchants as the cause of their own poverty. By that time it was forgotten that not so long ago, Italians and Greeks lived in a single state. The Greeks massacred Constantinople, slaughtering over 60,000 foreigners. This event, along with attempts to reduce trading privileges to Europeans, led to war with Venice and Genoa, which the Greeks lost. The truly deadly blows to the Byzantines came from the Crusaders and the Turks. The Crusaders didn't really have the goal of breaking up Byzantium. They sailed on another crusade to Egypt on Venetian ships, and in payment for transportation, Venice offered the knights to be collectors, to take away from the Byzantines what they owed the merchants. But in the end, in the region came chaos. Constantinople was plundered and ruined. In place of Byzantium appeared at once 4 splinters, each claiming the title of the main. Nicaea still defeated rivals and announced the restoration of the empire. However, it was already a weak shadow of the empire. The Turks finished the empire. For the next 100 years they will seize the majority of possessions of Byzantium, leaving behind it only Constantinople. The Greek rulers would even recognize themselves as vassals of the Ottomans. However, even Constantinople will be taken, marking the end of the eternal empire.